Harsanyi time, everybody. David Harsanyi, senior writer of National Review, friend of the show, is with us now. He has a fair-minded and honest eye looking at all the stuff going on right now with this Hunter Biden mess and the journalism or lack thereof around it. Great to have you back, David. What's up?
Always a pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, hold on a sec. We got emails now, and people like Leslie Stahl are telling the president of the United States to his face, well, we can't verify the laptop. I mean, you work for CBS 60 Minutes. I thought the whole point was that they could verify things. The journalists really are just pretending to be inept morons, it seems, at this point, because they can't come up with a better excuse.
Well, it's a completely new standard as well. I mean, just, I was thinking before about the Atlantic story where we learned that supposedly or allegedly Donald Trump had said all these horrible things about soldiers. There wasn't a single on the record source to corroborate that story. Nothing. Now we have an on the record source. The guy's a Navy vet. He was Hunter's partner, saying, yes, these emails are real, or this. I'm not sure if he said that about every email, but certain emails. And that, yes, Joe Biden, or at least Hunter told him that Joe Biden was a big part of what was going on. And whether that's true or not in the end, and I think that there is plenty of evidence that he knew about it, Joe, it's certainly verified as within this normal journalistic ethics, right? I mean, you can talk about it now. It's in the public record. There are people who are on the record saying it's true. We know that the laptop is real. We have the signed paper from Hunter at the Delaware shop right near where the Bidens, I think, lived. So it's just insane. It's just insane that they won't cover it. And when they do, they're always just sort of trying to explain it away, or it becomes like a pouncing story. The Republicans are ready to pounce on Hunter stuff. It's not really even about Hunter. It's about Joe Biden. Did he take a 10% cut? Did he know what he was doing?
That's the part of this that, as I'm saying, Hunter Biden being the world's biggest screw up in a million different ways, and even perhaps trading off his dad's name on his own. You know, it's bad, but I don't think you blame a political candidate for the actions of their children per se. I think that is a line you can draw, but that's not what we're seeing here. We're seeing Hunter Biden in emails and communications talking about how dad gets a cut. Dad knows about all this. The business partner, Bablinski, I think is his name, Lieutenant Bablinski, he says that Joe Biden knew all about this and that it was all done. And it's just a reminder, you would think they couldn't get away with something like this, David, so brazen and so unethical and very likely illegal, by the way. You think, except if the journos won't even touch this story with all the information and corroboration it currently has, do we really think that anybody was going to, of their own volition, look into the Biden's finances years ago? Of course not.
No, and now there's more. We have verified more information in this story and corroborated more of the things that the Post has reported, and has had more on the real sources on the record who were involved in the situation than we did for 4 years of Russiagate stories that still haven't been corrected, that still haven't been corroborated. In fact, they've been mostly debunked, and yet now they're pretending that they have this high ethical standard. I mean, it's insane. And you're right. This is about, listen, I think the Hunter story should be a story on its own if it's true, because it matters to some, it's newsworthy. I don't know if it's criminal, but the idea that the presidential candidate allowed his son to leverage off the United States government and then take a 10% cut, that's a pretty big story. I don't even know if it's illegal, but it sounds pretty corrupt. I'd like to know more about it. Everyone's telling me,
it seems to me like that actually would be, that in a fair-minded for a fair-minded person. If Joe Biden was really getting a 10% cut of his son doing deals based off of access to Joe Biden, first of all, I do believe that is a criminal conspiracy. I think that qualifies as quid pro quo corruption. Corruption cases are always a little tricky, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but I think that it probably would meet that threshold from what I know of the law. But beyond that, if I were a fair-minded person, that would be disqualifying. I mean, that is straight up disgusting behavior for not just like a state senator or a city councilman, the vice president of the United States.
How many stories have we read about how people come to this country from, diplomats and stay at a Trump property? Well, that's okay. That's newsworthy. Doesn't this seem at least as newsworthy as those stories? This is the front-running presidential candidate we're talking about. And, we don't know. It would be crazy to think that all of this is just made up by Hunter, in his emails. Even if that were true, they won't even ask him the question. And when they do ask, I saw one Wisconsin reporter ask, they do it in this really grating way where they're like, can you believe what these crazy Republicans are saying about you? Do you have a comment on this craziness? And then he gets to tee off on them, but they never ask him a simple question. Did you ever benefit financially from what Hunter was doing in Ukraine or in China? Did you know about it? Because he lied, right? He lied in the past and said he knew nothing about what Hunter was doing. We know that that's probably not true now.
Right. I mean, that's the fact that there has not been a real ask of, did you ever make any money off of anything Hunter did, and ask in a straightforward way. I can guarantee that if someone asked that question, they would not get a clear denunciation from Joe Biden. There would be some, my son and Trump's the real, the usual Biden bluster. You would not get a real answer from him on it, because I think they're going to be able to prove, David, in this last stretch. I mean, I know some of the people who have access to the emails there. I think they're going to be able to prove this.
Yeah, I mean, he would just say, come on, how dare you, and try to distract. And the media helped him. They bought a week with Russian disinformation, which was just a complete nonsensical lie. And then they're trying to buy another week, and they're just trying to pull it out. That's fine. I don't even know if this story would change anything that much. I don't know. But it is newsworthy, and journalists just not only actively not covering it, but trying to censor it. I don't mean government censorship, but what Twitter has done to the New York Post account, that is nuts. And I don't even know what would happen if they did that to the New York Times, which has run countless, stories that they haven't verified. I mean, even the tax story, I don't even know if that's true. Who did they speak to? I don't know. We just have to trust them to some extent. The Post has been more transparent about the political and partisan nature of how that information was gathered, which I think is good to be transparent about, but doesn't mean that the information is untrue or that the laptop isn't real. It most certainly
and I got to say, we're speaking to David Harsanyi, senior writer at nationalreview.com. David, the New York Post got trashed by fellow journalists, which I just think is inexcusable. It's so appalling on so many levels. People were sneering at it. Oh, it's a tabloid. Oh, Rupert Murdoch owns it. Oh, as if it's like the newspaper that talks about, aliens landing in the desert and bringing back, a baby Jesus or something. You know what I mean? Those things, like, they really were demeaning the newspaper last week for the most obvious political purposes. Now that it's clear the New York Post was 100% correct and in the right, there's no apologies or even hey, maybe we'll be a little more fair-minded to you guys next time from the rest of the journalist cadre.
Yeah, no, I mean, their mission is to get Joe Biden elected. That's their mission. I mean, not all of them, but most of them. The political press, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, we know all the names. I mean, the Atlantic ran with that story about Trump saying all those terrible things about soldiers. I mean, and that's a magazine filled with pseudo-intellectuals and sort of just spewing out 5,000-word nonsensical articles every single day. And yet we're supposed to take them seriously, but not reporters at the New York Post, which breaks stories all the time. Biggest city in the world, one of the largest circulations in America. I mean, it's just nuts. And where are all these people like Brian both of those CNN media reporters and everyone else who is constantly acting like being critical of journalism is an attack on the First Amendment? You know what I'm saying? They make no distinction between those two, except if it's about some reporter they don't like at the Daily Caller or at, wherever, at the New York Post. I mean, but I'm getting sick of complaining about them in the sense that I think we just have to move on and we have to build our own media infrastructure and do what we have to do, because you can't fight this all the time because they don't care. There's no one above. There's no editor-in-chief saying you have to act more professionally. There's no one stopping them anymore. I mean, you see them on Twitter. They just sort of sneer and laugh and retweet Media Matters. You know what I mean? So you're not going to stop these people.
Look, I think that journalists as a professional class are arguably the most dishonest and worst people engaged in what is ostensibly a legal trade in the country. I mean, I really believe that. I would take any number of other. I would take, I don't know, casino owners and strip club barons over journalists these days in terms of the ethics of their job, because at least those other folks are telling you what they're really doing. Journalists are engaged in a perpetual fraud. They're lying to the public about what their goals are and what they're doing.
Buck, I would have agreed with you even when I was working in a newspaper 15 years ago on that, so I'm not going to argue, but I think you're right. And then I just want to quickly add, because they drive me bananas, then you have fact checkers, which are, with the conceit of which is that some person can decide an argument at a newspaper who's just a reporter. These are columnists, and yet now they're used by political campaigns, by Democrats all the time to say, this has been fact checked, where it's an easy way to circumvent argument. But, I don't want to get too deeply into what the problems with journalism. But the thing is that I think that the pressure that many people have put on others to defend the Post and to talk about Twitter has actually blown this story up maybe even bigger than it would have been generally.
Oh, yeah,
so
I think effectively the suppression, what I call the Great Suppression, magnified this story much more rapidly than if they had allowed it to pursue, go through normal social media channels. But David, before we let you go, we've got a big debate tonight. People are going to be watching it soon after hearing us right here, or listening to it. So, what are your expectations? What do you think's going to happen, and will it matter?
I'm skeptical that it will matter very much, though. I think you see a national poll. Some national polls getting wider, but some of the state polls, getting a little closer and constricting. So I don't know how important it is. I don't think that Trump will do worse than he did last time. He was overly aggressive and he wouldn't let Biden speak. But I do think this is an opportunity for Trump to ask some questions that the media won't ask and bring it to the attention of people who haven't even heard about it. That includes Hunter, though I don't think he should obsess on that topic. I think he should just bring it up. But I don't know how much it'll matter. We'll see.
David Harsanyi of nationalreview.com. David, great to see you, my friend.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Biden is also pledging mass amnesty and free federal health care for illegal aliens. And we all have a heart. It will obliterate Medicare and Social Security with that. But we all have a heart. The problem, I want to take care of everybody. The problem is our country will be flooded with tens of millions of people. Free health care, free education. I always say for them, it drives them crazy. Everybody gets a free Rolls Royce, and then they say, I am misrepresenting. They don't get a Rolls Royce. But think of it. Free health care. And I will always protect your Medicare and your Social Security.
President on immigration here, which because we're in this bizarre world of COVID has become much less of an issue. But remember, that was his signature issue in 2016. It is what separated him from the rest of the Republican field. It's what broke him out ahead of that Republican field. And it's an area where he has been proven to be very prescient. I think the president has been shown to be right on immigration. And when he says the Democrats, he's telling you what I've been telling you, they want amnesty. They get amnesty. They tried to get it through and make Republicans complicit in it the last time with the Gang of Eight bill and Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio's career never really recovered from that. But they tried to make Republicans a part of it with this, because there are Republicans who want to be considered heroes and get a lot of nice media coverage, big donations. The Chamber of Commerce will love you. The big moneyed interests for corporations that rely on cheap labor. There's a lot of upside to being a Republican who supports amnesty. Paul Ryan was a Republican who really supported amnesty, for example. You get to be an establishment guy who talks a lot about the Constitution and the debt, but doesn't really talk about what happens tomorrow if we let the left get their way with policies like this. So Trump is right when he says that there's going to be mass amnesty, and also with amnesty comes an enormous additional drain on the healthcare system. Right. I mean, this is why. And there are all these like libertarian open borders groups that I come across and stuff will say, oh, but it'll increase GDP. Yeah, but it'll increase the expenses. And these are individuals who are in an increasingly information-based economy with already depressed wages in a lot of areas of the country. Again, pre-COVID, COVID has messed up the numbers. But for manual labor and for things where illegal immigrants are more able to compete for jobs. And that's real. And if you want to read on that or learn more about that, Professor Borjas at Harvard has done some of the most in-depth research on it. I've read his work, and he just shows, when you flood an area with a lot of unskilled illegal immigrants for jobs like, carpentry and, what you consider to be day laborer kind of work, it brings down a lot of other wages. And, carpenters who live in that area can't make the same kind of money. And it's not nationwide all at once. It's really state by state, really county by county within the state. But think about what it will do to the healthcare system as well. You're going to bring people in who will overwhelmingly be dependent upon the state via Medicaid or Medicare for all or whatever the Democrats are proposing. That's how it's going to work. So this is a major concern. So you can look at this in the reality of what the Democrats are going to try to do, or you can be a fake Republican who's just, this is about character. This is about a good man versus a bad man. But guys, does Joe Scarborough think he's a good man? That will be interesting. I'd like to hear that explanation. I'm not going to go too into the personal stuff that's public that we all know about with that guy. Not exactly a model for how to live your life. Fair enough. But big Trump supporter who now acts like he's the great hero of the resistance. But he's appealing to your moral sensibility over at MSNBC. He works at a network that just spews lies and nonsense and divides people with the most aggressive and toxic identity politics narratives possible. CNN today ran a story about how the officer that had his knee on the neck of George Floyd, third-degree murder charge dropped. They dropped that charge. They kept the more serious second-degree murder charge. But CNN in the headline, third-degree murder charge dropped, just to get everyone, oh my gosh. Here's Scarborough's pitch. Play 8.
It's interesting. You can look at that video, and I think most Americans would agree that this election is between a good man and a bad man.
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable saying that Donald Trump is a bad man.
He's a bad man. He liked him a lot when he gave access to the president, right? Or access to the Republican candidate. Joe Scarborough, rather, was a big fan. But now he's all about integrity and honesty, and Trump's a bad guy, folks. Trump is imperfect. No one's ever said he was perfect. He's been a good president, and he brings far more to the table, and just there's so much more upside for all of us, for all Americans, including the psycho libs who would scream if I said this to their faces. And I would love to, but they won't listen to me. It'll be better for all of us than a corrupt, phony, fraudulent Joe Biden. Oh, he's just a moderate presidency. Nobody really thinks that, but they're just trying to fool people.
It's time for roll call.
Roll call. Send us your thoughts. Facebook.com/Buck Sexton. If you want to send a message that way, very easy way to do it. If you want to email us, teambuck@iheartmedia.com. Or if you prefer, you can send a direct message on Instagram, because I'm on the gram now. Buck Sexton is my name on the Instagram. Or text sex dump, whatever Keith Olbermann calls me, but that's not actually my Instagram name, but I just think that's kind of funny. He said it again yesterday on Twitter. What a maniac. Producer Mark, have you ever seen the old Ben Affleck thing where he does an impersonation on SNL of Keith Olbermann and Miss Precious Perfect the cat? It may be the funniest thing Ben Affleck has ever done.
I haven't. I'll have to go YouTube that.
Oh, you should watch it. Miss Precious Perfect, picked on by the condo board, unable to stay with me and my mom. It's amazing. It's amazing. You got to watch it. It's like the bet. It's one of the funnier things I remember seeing on SNL really for many years. This was back when SNL was a comedy show instead of a crappy pseudo political commentary show. I don't know if you know that used to be a thing.
I miss old SNL.
Old
I don't
SNL
watch it
was great.
anymore, really.
Old SNL was a bunch of people who were trying to actually do funny things on Saturday night for the entertainment of the American people. SNL for the last 10 years or so has been like a wokeness parade. Yeah, we're so woke, man. Gross. What do you got going on? We got the debate coming up in just a little bit. What are you going to be doing?
I'll be watching the debate most likely.
But do you Do you game time eat or do you like to pregame eat?
Oh, I pregame eat. And then I'll have the football on the other TV. But the Giants are playing, but they stink, so I don't really want to watch that. But I'll have it on.
So will there will be a Super Bowl this year on time in January? Is that the plan?
As of right now, yeah, I think it's still early February, but they have contingency plans that make it go all the way to late March if they have to.
How can the New York market not have better sports teams? I know for the rest of the country, they're like, Buck, that's your problem. We don't care. But New York should have better teams.
The Jets are historically bad.
Yeah, well, that's not a surprise. All righty. Let's get to the roll call here. Dan, President Trump and the GOP is playing a dangerous game with the conservative base. I am voting for Trump, but I have yet to see any accountability for actual criminal behavior from the left. Clinton emails, Obama Spygate, IRS scandal, Biden shenanigans, and so on. No one is behind bars. We will not wait forever, and in fact, we have waited long enough. It is time for accountability. If Trump blows it during the next term, the GOP will lose its base, I promise. Dan, what you're saying is true. I mean, there has been really no accountability for the Clinton emails, Spygate, IRS, and this Biden stuff. And I'm not going to tell you things I don't think are true. There's not going to be accountability for any of that, most likely. There's something about Republicans where even though they know the other side will try to ruin us, imprison our children, take all of our money, and destroy our lives, and use the government and use federal agents and places like the FBI and prosecutors' offices as weapons to that effect, even though we're completely aware of that, our team, our side is always, well, we don't want to be too rough. We don't want to, we don't want to make anybody feel too bad. So we're just going to let bygones be bygones. And then they try to, run a special counsel, or they try to throw our kids in prison again, or they do whatever it is that they do. And we go back. It's just like a cycle. We just keep going through the same cycle over and over again. So yeah, Dan, I hear what you're saying, man. It's disappointing, to be sure. I have no disagreement with you on that. And I think it is unfortunately unlikely to change. I do not see it changing anytime soon. Alex, hey, love the show. We love you, Alex. I imagine I'll be listening for a long time from the way I've been listening to y'all since the beginning of this pandemic. I just wanted to say DuckDuckGo is a great search engine. I use it if I can't find what I'm looking for, since Google tends to hide most conservative opinions and facts. Also, I can't wait to hear your Dracula podcast and the others you were talking about. Listening from Dallas, my mom told me about y'all when she tuned in the radio on her way to Florida. Well, Alex, that's great, man. Thank you so much. It's great to have a relatively new member of Team Buck who's really into what we're doing here. Dracula podcast is in the works, and I've got a deadline here because it's only 10 days, no, less than that, 9 days before Halloween. So I want to get it out before Halloween. So that'll be kind of cool. And as for DuckDuckGo, I've never even heard. Producer Mark, you even heard of it?
I have. I know a lot of tech people like to talk about it because they don't like Google and all the tracking and whatnot.
Oh, interesting. DuckDuckGo. Okay. You remember playing Duck Duck Goose as a kid?
Of course. What child didn't?
Yeah. That was a fun one. Duck Duck Goose was good. I used to love Capture the Flag games when I was a kid. I thought that was a great one.
Or Manhunt.
Yeah.
I used to play those. Those were fun.
Yeah, Capture the Flag was great. Now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to run fast and people are going to chase me. That sounds like I've done something illegal. I have no interest.
And too much effort at this point.
Yeah. I'm going to get winded by it. No, that's no fun. We don't need that. Don, the lack of civics being taught in schools has advantaged the left for years. The Biden campaign is now leveraging this ignorance to wrongly accuse the administration of mismanagement of the pandemic. Ultimately, health is controlled by states and municipalities. How Governor Cuomo mandated the admission of COVID-19 positive patients to nursing homes is an example of this. The closing of business is also at the whim of states and municipalities. I hope the president uses the next debate to rectify this educational negligence, to inform the citizenry of the role of the federal government in local issues like health. He needs to explain the role of the federal government and how it is restricted from meddling in local governance. Yes, Don, I think it's true that people not understanding really both the foundation and origin of the government that we have and the reasons for the limitations. I mean, limitations on government power has become almost a cultural thing. People hear that and they say, oh, you're some right-wing Tea Party, blah. Well, no. Of course we want a limited government. The alternative is a government that can take away any of your freedoms. So there's always the moral necessity for limitations on government authority and power, and that's also what laws serve to do. The biggest threat of tyranny that we face is not from some foreign government or foreign country, although China is getting pretty big and pretty scary. And who knows what 20 or 30 years from now is going to look like. The real threat of tyranny today is here at home, and we're seeing how quickly it can happen. We're seeing how the frog can boil slowly in the pot with the COVID restrictions that we're under. That I'm amazed people are willing to still sit back and deal with this the way that they are. I mean, I would lead a civil disobedience movement in New York, except it'd be me and 5 other people. And everybody else around us would be like, Trump supporters, get them. So what's the point? Doesn't do anything. Don't have a critical mass of people who think for themselves and are rational in New York City that can push back on this. So, as I always tell you, you got to have a plan. Don't just charge the machine gun nest. For me to be a mask non-compliance guy, I'd be one of very, very few people in Manhattan that would be taking that position. And it's not mask non-compliance all the time. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, look, if people want to wear it on subways, I get it. I mean, there's some circumstances. I'm not crazy about it, but I also, they had the Flaming Lips, which is apparently a band. They had a concert that a lot of people saw recently where everyone was in their own individual plastic bubble. All the audience in plastic bubbles. This is the future that we want? This is what we think people should be doing? This is lunacy. It's idiocy. It's embarrassing for the people involved. But now they even have it in New York. Producer Mark, have you seen this? Some restaurants, they set up these plastic bubbles for people outside.
Yeah, I will not be dining in one of those.
Yeah, this is why I'm now just like, look, I want to eat takeout. I don't want to wear a mask and deal with all this crap. So I'll go to restaurants and pay them to make my food, and then I just take it home. I can't sign on for this nonsense, this silliness. And it's really oppressive. And I don't understand why people don't see it that way more. They should see it that way. Anyway, good note, Don. Thanks for writing in. Adam Buck on T-Swift. Isn't her whole career built on having bad taste in men? Why would Biden want her endorsement? Shields high. Producer Mark, I defer to you. Is that what her career is based on?
But yeah, that's most of her songs involve heartbreak and breaking up with guys. Yeah.
She's never been
I think
married.
That's the
right?
joke he's making. No, he has not. She has not been. No.
Interesting. He's like maybe almost 30 now?
Somewhere around
late
that,
20s,
I think. Yeah.
Almost 30, something like that. Yeah. Producer Mark says it's true, so I believe it. So there you go. Yeah. I like your joke, Adam. Thank you. All right, more roll call courtesy of Leslie. Hey there, Buck. Just wanted to say I've been listening to you for a few months now, and I've passed the buck with several of my conservative gal pals. We have what we lovingly refer to as Buck Wild Girls Night now, where we catch up on our weeks and talk about your podcast over wine. We absolutely adore you and very much appreciate your knowledge. It's really become a bonding experience for us being conservative ladies because that's not an easy thing in today's world. So thank you for being the wise men in our lives. Shields high. Well, thank you, Leslie. That's great. That's super. That's Buck Wild Girls Night. Sounds like a lot of fun. Gotta say. Producer Mark, do you have any comments that are safe for radio?
I cannot make any comments out of fear of the FCC.
Fair enough. But no, that sounds lovely, Leslie. Thank you so much for writing in and telling us about this. And I hope you ladies enjoy some Pinot Noir, listen to this podcast, and maybe cheese. I was going to give cheese recommend. Cheese is what I've already said this. French fries, chocolate, cheese. These are my food weaknesses. Without those, I would be in much better shape calorically in my daily intake. But those are just 3 things that, and as Mark points out, you can put cheese on the fries to make them truly magnificent. But now let's turn this around for a second. Can you put chocolate on fries? Does anyone do this?
Some people like to dip like a Wendy's Frosty or a milkshake, a chocolate milkshake, into their fries into that. I'm not a big fan of that, but I see the appeal.
Yes. Milkshakes. I had those growing up. That's, if you want to put on weight really quickly, I think an ice cream milkshake is one of the most effective ways you can possibly do it. So there's that.
Yeah, because you're drinking it, so you don't even think about it.
Yeah, and it just goes right into your, the sugar rush goes right into your bloodstream. It's already in liquid form. There's no fiber to slow it down. And a milkshake, I mean, you can do a milkshake that's 600, 700, 800 calories, man. Yeah. Party time. It's actually sounding delicious now that I'm talking about it out loud. Adam, hey, Buck, what's the, Shields High, what's the title of that book you wrote on socialism? I'd like to buy it. And what's the secret of getting a spot on roll call? Keep up the good work, you gray-beard millennial. Well, Adam, the book is the Socialism Survival Guide. I wrote it before the pandemic. So when I wrote it, it looked like maybe Bernie was going to be the nominee and we were going to be living in a very different world we're living in now. But the ideas all still very much apply when it comes to what the Democrats are trying to do going forward. And I make some predictions about what they will do. And my friends at Stansberry Research also add some financial know-how into all of it so that there's a takeaway that you can take from it beyond just, oh my gosh, bad things are happening because of, the socialism. So you can go to buckelectionbook.com if you want to get it. Totally free. Get a copy. buckelectionbook.com. We're actually giving them away now right in advance of the election. As long as you give your email, sign up for your email, and buckelectionbook.com. So check it out. And next up in the roll call, we have Jeff. Hey, Buck and Mark, love the show. I'm passing the buck to get younger guys I work with more informed on politics. Anyway, I work in natural gas infrastructure construction and travel extensively through the West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio areas. As the polls are telling us, President Trump is losing in PA and Ohio from what I see on the road, a ratio of yard signs 50-1 in Trump's favor. Also, Trump supporters have flags, banners, homemade signs, and billboards on their property. I know this isn't science, but the truth about what's out there in flyover country is hard to ignore. Well, Jeff, I hope your observations are in fact a reflection, are in fact they're correct. Right? So there we go. I really hope you're seeing what you're seeing is what's going to be reflected in the election results. But as I've told you, and I'm hitting this prediction hard, if it's close, they're not going to concede Pennsylvania. If that's the difference between winning and losing, which maybe it won't be, but they will not concede Pennsylvania and maybe a few other states on election night based upon mail-in balloting. But Pennsylvania is really going to be that's going to be a dogfight. I'm pretty confident about that. Tim writes in, hey, Buck, I've been a listener from the Saturday Blaze days. Whoa, original Saturday Squad, OSS. I was a Navy corpsman assigned to a Marine Grunt Battalion 37 years ago. On 10/23/83, I was in Beirut, Lebanon for the U.S. Marine Corps barracks bombing. Carnage I witnessed has still scared me to this day. As a 22-year-old knucklehead, I never really understood what caused all the hostilities toward us. Almost every night we were in firefights or rocket attacks. The VA does not consider this a war, so many of us don't receive the care we need. Can you do a deep dive about the first major true attack on America from Islamic terrorists? Thank you, Semper Fi and Shields High. P.S. Tell producer Mark there's room on the therapist couch for us Mets and Giants fans to ask us why we hate ourselves. Well, first, Tim, I did do a deep dive on the Marine barracks bombing some years ago. I forget. It might have been 5 or 6 years ago now. But on the, I know you're writing in, and the anniversary of it will be tomorrow. So maybe I can bring back some of that and tell people about what happened that day. So that's certainly we appreciate you writing in with that, and thank you for your service. And as for producer Mark, yeah, Mets and Giants. Well, who's worse right now, Mark, for their league, the Mets or the Giants?
Giants by far. They're terrible.
What's their record?
They're 1-5 right now.
Ooh,
no.
That's rough.
They have one more win than the Jets do.
The Jets have not won a game yet?
No, and they won't all season.
That's gotta, when you're a professional and you're in a competitive league like that, It's got to be tough to never win a game, but we'll have to go and check that out in time. See if producer Mark's prediction's correct. Everybody, please pass the buck. You know how to do it. Get somebody to listen to the podcast new this week during this election season. Until next time, shields high.